What's up, Packers fans, and welcome back to another episode of the Daily Draft brought to you by Badger State Brewing in Green Bay, Wisconsin. I am your host, Ross Uglem, the publisher of Packer Report, and today we are tackling Oregon center Jackson Powers Johnson. Really excited to talk about this guy, and let's dive right in. My first note, I love him. I love him so much. I love watching him play football. He's an awesome, awesome football player. And I know that it doesn't sound like very technical or very advanced scouting, but there's guys that you watch and you're super excited, and then there's guys that you watch and you're just like, okay, this is part of what I have to do for the draft guide, or this is part of my research. Like Jackson Powers Johnson, I enjoyed every minute that I spent watching him play football. Killed guys at the Senior Bowl, killed them, and that's a maybe not something that's quite as valuable as just his tape and what he was able to accomplish at Oregon. But at the same time, it's important to watch a player go against the best players at the opposing position and dominate, right? So it does take some, and look, there are very good interior defensive linemen in the Pac-12. That's not what I'm saying, but you watch him go against the best of the best. You watch him go against other top 300 guys from this class, and he was dominant. I mean, truly, truly dominant, and that's an exciting thing because it really kind of confirms some of the things that I thought about him watching him play for Oregon, watching him on tape. To me, one of the things too, OC one, center one, like with a bullet. I don't think it's close. And there are guys that I like. Brand Pran, I like Zach Frazier quite a bit. Like even though he's a little bit smaller, I like Drake Nugent from Michigan. Powers Johnson is on a different level. Frankly, like, sort of how I felt about Creed Humphrey. And that's not just me going back in time and saying, "Oh, I really like." Go look at what I wrote about Creed Humphrey. Go look where I ranked him. Go look at how annoyed I was that the Packers took Josh Myers one pick in front of him. And that's we're not going to relitigate all that, but like that's the gap, right? There's a big gap for me between Powers Johnson and the next center, and like I said, it's not that close. I thought he could. I thought he showed he could play a little bit of guard. I think they moved him around a little bit at the Senior Bowl. He's certainly big enough to play guard. Looking at his official measurements, 6'3" and a quarter, 330. Plenty of guards in the league that are a shade over 6'3" that are just fine. Okay. And sometimes being a little on the shorter side gives you a leverage advantage, but I'm not concerned about length for him at guard with 32 plus inch arms and at 6'3" and a shade. I think he's a center. I think you want to play him at center. But let's say Green Bay drafts him. They want to keep Myers at center. You play Jackson Powers Johnson at guard for a year and then let Myers go. Like that's definitely a real path that you can take if you're any NFL team, not just the Packers, but that's something that I think you can do with Jackson Powers Johnson. Really, really quick off the ball and has excellent movement skills. Reminds me a little bit of Garrett Bradbury in that way, and I mean that as a positive. I mean his college tape. Being excited watching him because Bradbury was a former tight end, then moved to center for NC State, and everybody watched him zone block and got so excited about his ability to climb up to the next level. And look, he's still in the league. I mean, he's a bust compared to where he's taken and not a super good center. But when I'm talking about a center that can move on college film, like Garrett Bradbury is right up there. And there are some other things. Obviously, anchor is a huge problem for a Garrett Bradbury. But when I watch somebody at 6'3" and some change, 330, move like a player that used to be a tight end and I think was like 297. That's impressive to me. And that's what I see sometimes when I see Jackson Powers Johnson. His punch is very strong. There would not be a lot of zeros and ones that don't kind of get knocked back a little bit. His hands hit like hammers. Very consistent hand placement and just does a really good job with that initial punch. Super, super impressive. You see, and with him, a lot of times centers are 305, 6'3", whatever. So when they displace 330-pound nose tackles, it's super impressive. Jackson Powers Johnson is 330 pounds. So you take a guy that size with real center skills, and that's why, to me, he's such a special prospect because he's a big dude, and he still moves like a center, and he still plays like a center, and has the intelligence of a center. Um, I think he'll just kill people in a zone system, especially at the center position, because of the way that he can move, because of the way that he can climb to the second level. And if you think his punch and his hands are heavy on interior defensive linemen, especially in this league now where linebackers are 220, 225 instead of being 245, and some of them are 245. Like, I understand that, but this sub league, this pass defense league, these lighter linebackers, even as a rookie, I think if there's guys in the NFL that if Jackson Powers Johnson gets to them at the second level, it's going to be game over, and it's going to be a big run. And that we'll get to his Packers fit, but that's a big plus for him is the movement skills at that size. And I'm not talking about combine numbers, so we don't have combine numbers. I'm talking about what I see on film when I watch this kid play. Looks for work in pass pro. A lot of times, the way that teams line up when they're rushing the passer, the center's uncovered. It does happen. Like, there are plenty of times where the center has to pass pro right away too. But sometimes teams like a wide approach come in at the quarterback, center's uncovered. Jackson Powers Johnson will go help his buddy, and he'll put your you know what in the turf, in the dirt. And it's fun to watch. Ben Fennell loves it. I love watching paying attention to Ben's Twitter feed, or his X feed, I guess it is now. And he loves guys that look for work. Jackson Powers Johnson looks for work. And the number one thing that I'll say is he's just hilariously good in pass protection. And that's what makes him an elite prospect. The run game stuff's fun. All that's good, great, whatever. But it's a passing league. You win the Super Bowl by passing, you know, that's where we're at. I know the 49ers have Christian McCaffrey, but they still beat the Packers by throwing the ball. Okay. And they still invested in George Kittle and Brandon Ayuk and Deebo Samuel. Okay. Those are the investments that they made in throwing the ball. And protecting the passers is a huge deal. And this dude is a brick wall. I mean, literally, he's shaped like a brick wall, but he's a brick wall. The word I used was hilarious. He is hilariously good in pass protection. Gave up one quarterback knockdown in 3 seasons, 0 sacks. Did not give up a sack in college. He cannot be bull rushed. He's too strong. He's the you want to talk about the Garrett Bradbury comp? He's the anti Bradbury. When you see Kenny Clark for 4 years straight, just forklift Bradbury into his own quarterback. There's no forklift lifting Jackson Powers Johnson. He's too big, and he's too strong, and he's too technically sound. He is an artist in the pass pro game. His ability to mirror, his ability to pick up stunts, his intelligence, his footwork, and it all goes back to the primary thing, which is his strength in his hands and just his the aspect of him just being immovable is so impressive, and it shows up on tape time after time. Specifically, like I said, if you're going to use an elite high level pick, if you're going to use a premium pick on a center, he better be a rock star in pass protection. That's exactly what Jackson Powers Johnson is. Cons, his pad level's occasionally high. I think it's a bad habit because he's so gosh darn strong. He's too strong to have it matter in college, but I think there are pros that could get under him. He's just such a better athlete and such a better football player than most of the interior defensive linemen in the Pac-12. That his technique can get a little high. He can get up. And pad level. That's Mike McCarthyism all day long. Occasionally, and I do mean occasionally, he oversets in pass pro. Still hasn't gotten beat doing it, as I just gave you the numbers on the pass protection. But occasionally he will overset in pass protection. He's a 1-year starter, which I don't get. I think he's a younger guy. I'd have to look here if we have a confirmed age, and we don't, but just a backup in 2021, and then kind of a rotational guy in 2022, and then the full-time starter at center in 2023, and then he was the best center in the country. Again, I'm not concerned, right? It's not a huge red flag, but I got to put the yellow flags on a guy that I'm naming number 1 at his position with a bullet, right? There have to be some issues. I don't know, what the ceiling for where I would have a center would be. Maybe the late 20s. Why isn't Creed in the late 20s? And I'm going through some of the things here. Um, he's interior offensive line only. Okay. And that's not necessarily a knock, but it's a fact. Like even Elton Jenkins, who everybody viewed as a center, he was the center that folks were talking about in that Bradbury draft, Elton Jenkins or Garrett Bradbury. And Jenkins obviously has the versatility to play tackle. He has played left tackle for the Packers. He's settled in at left guard. He has a ton of versatility. I see zero versatility in Jackson Powers Johnson other than center or guard. And I really want to see him play center. So that's one thing when you're talking about value. The value of Elton Jenkins to not get murdered at left tackle for those 8, 9, 10 games, whatever it was that the Packers needed him, that makes him an extremely valuable football player. And I'm not saying that Jackson Powers Johnson is not an extremely valuable football player. What I am saying is that I really don't think at 6'3" and some change with 32 in it, a little bit inch arms, no experience, and just built like a chest freezer. I mean, built like if you're from Wisconsin, where you keep your quarter beef, where you keep your out in the garage, right? That's what he's shaped like. Just the most ridiculous human being. And I don't think he can play tackle. I don't think he has those feet. I don't think he has just some guys are built to play interior offensive line. That's Jackson Powers Johnson. And if you're drafting him to do that, awesome. But if we're going to try and pick apart a very, very, very good prospect, the fact that I don't think he can play any tackle has to be mentioned as a con, because if he did have that versatility, it would be a pro. And that's about as simple as I can make it. Okay. Diving into the Packers fit, I think it'd be really, really good, except the fact that he's not a tackle prospect in any way. And that's fine, right? They spent a round 2 on Josh Myers, who they never, ever, I don't think planned on playing a tackle, although Myers, I think, was a 4 or a 5-star tackle prospect coming out of high school, so it's not crazy. Plus, he's tall, especially for a center. But I don't think Green Bay has ever had any. I mean, they haven't even played him at guard, I don't think. So Myers has been a center-only prospect. And then, unfortunately, go back and look at when they got their really good center-onlys, and is like late in the draft, right? That's why I like Drake Nugent for them potentially. But you start looking at Scott Wells and when they took Scott Wells. You look at Corey Linsley and when they took Corey Linsley. Has not been a team that takes these center-only prospects. Because you even look at Elton Jenkins and you think, well, they're drafting a center. That's interesting. Well, they're drafting a guy to play left guard that had tackle versatility. Again, I don't know that Jackson Powers Johnson has that. I think he could compete at right guard right away, or provide an immediate upgrade at center. That's the part where also, I'm kind of picking apart the Packers fit, because are they going to take an interior only prospect this high? And this high, I mean 41. I don't think he's probably. If they took a center at 25, I'd be shocked. I'd be fine with the pick because I think he's a really, really good player, but I'd be pretty surprised. So are they going to do that? Maybe, especially like I said, if he can back up all 3 spots inside, or maybe compete and start at right guard, and then you just kind of have the writing on the wall, and you tell Josh Myers that we're going to try to win a Super Bowl, and we're going to try and get you paid, and you can go out there and kick butt, and it's probably not going to be here, but then your next contract will be bigger, and we're going to slide this kid in, and that's the business of the business. That would be how. Or if Josh Myers just stinks, then you have his replacement. And I think Myers has been on an upward trend. The Packers seem to like Myers a lot more than the public does, or, as Packers fans do. But ultimately, he's the Josh Myers replacement, I think, with a little versatility to fill in if someone gets hurt at guard, or just in a head-to-head competition with Sean Ryan at right guard. He's a Pac-12 guy. They like the Pac-12. Rest in peace, the Pac-12. I don't know if Green Bay will be interested. The only other aspect of this that makes me think maybe they are is they love those risers at the Senior Bowl. Green Bay loves the Senior Bowl and has taken guys. Christian Watson comes to mind. Dontavion Wicks comes to mind. I mean, they like guys that kick butt at the Senior Bowl, and he did. And so that's, maybe a chance that they'll take a guy who can't play tackle as high as you would have to take Jackson Powers Johnson. Okay. My final grade for Jackson Powers Johnson, I'm giving him a high round 2. And I'm not super into, actually, let's go back just very briefly. I want to go back super, super briefly because we've talked a number of times about uh, the thresholds here. And then we'll get into the final grade because we're still on the Packers fit, and I apologize for jumping around. Um, okay. Green Bay likes you to have a relative athletic score of 7 or more on the interior offensive line. Obviously, we know none of that because, well, we're not going to know any of this, really. Um, and so they like you to be a 70th percentile athlete or more. They like that short shuttle time to be 4.75 seconds or less. They like that 3-cone time on the interior to be 7.75 seconds or less. So the two things that you're looking for really on the interior offensive line, because that's less of a height weight requirement. In fact, there isn't one here on Jacob Morley's Packer People. You're looking at that short shuttle. You're looking at that 3-cone. You're looking for overall athleticism in the RAS. And the Packers don't use RAS, or they've said they don't. But I promise you, they have a composite score system. I promise you, they have that. And you're looking at those short area quickness. That's going to be what Green Bay is really looking for. So if you're a Jackson Powers Johnson fan, you want the Packers to draft him. You're going to want that short shuttle to come in at less than 4.75 seconds. You're going to want that 3-cone time to come in at less than 7.75 seconds. All right, back to the overall grade. He's a high round 2. And what I was trying to get to and why it made me think of the combine numbers is there have been prospects that I've talked about who I am looking at what they may or may not do at the combine with a real close eye. Not doing that for Jackson Powers Johnson. I know what I need to know. Now, if he bombs at the combine, that's one thing. I don't think he's going to bomb. I don't know that I'm really going to move Jackson Powers Johnson very far from 40th overall. I don't. There's no more or less he can do on tape than to get anything but a high round 2 grade from me. Center one with a bullet, and that's my guy. Okay, is Jackson Powers Johnson. Now, if he's a 96th percentile athlete, maybe I'll move him up and just say, hey, maybe he could play some tackle. If he's that athletic, maybe he could play some tackle. We'll see. Overall, though, I'll just say he doesn't have the versatility beyond center or guard, or I think he'd be a top 20 prospect. You think about Creed Humphrey and how much I loved Creed Humphrey and where I ranked Creed Humphrey overall. And he went 52nd overall because nobody thought he could do anything but play center. Centers just aren't that valued by the NFL. And I think the Garrett Bradbury thing scared people with the premium pick that the Vikings burned on him, and he just tanked the interior of their offensive line. I think that might have scared people off. You haven't seen true centers go super high in the draft since the Bradbury pick. Now, may have nothing to do with it. May just be the crop of guys that have come out since that Bradbury Elton Jenkins class. I don't know. But for me, I don't necessarily see Jackson Powers becoming a Green Bay Packer because he's not a super versatile player. Awesome player. One of my favorite players in this draft. Love Jackson Powers Johnson. Okay, guys. Thank you so much for watching. What can you do to kind of repay the favor? The Green Bay Draft Guide powered by Packer Report is something that we put a lot of blood, sweat, and tears into and a lot of love into. We've got a 10% off promo code. There should be a link to buy this thing right here in the video description or the podcast description. That promo code is daily, DAILY, is in the daily draft. You can follow me. I'm at Ross Uglem on Twitter or X as it's known now. Check out all of our work at Packer Report. You can become a VIP. The first month is always $1 if you just kind of want to see what we're about. And guys, please like, subscribe, do all those things right here to the Pack a Day podcast. Thank you so much for watching. Have an awesome rest of your day, and go Pack Go.